A number of years ago, a neighbor came up to me and said, I know I'm going to hell. And I was like, excuse me? And he said, I murdered somebody. And I was like, oh, tell me more. And he said, I was in World War II, and I was entrusted with some Japanese prisoners, and we were in this little boat, and there was just me and one other guy guarding them, and we knew if we would nod it off at all, they were going to kill us. So we just decided, let's just kill them all. And that's what they did in cold blood. They shot all of them, threw them overboard. Totally no evidence remained of what they did, except it continued to weigh on his heart. And he had concluded there was no hope for him, that he was going to hell because of what he'd done. Oh, friends, can you imagine the privilege it was to share with him the story of the Apostle Paul, who had murdered believers, pursued them, and yet God still reached out to him in love, revealed himself to him, because Jesus had died on the cross to pay even the penalty for that sin. And then to take him over to Matthew and to show him where Jesus said, you've heard it said, that if anyone murders, he's, you know what I mean? He's deserves death. But I tell you, if anyone even looks at somebody and thinks, you fool, he's a murderer. And I said, did you know I'm a murderer too? That's one of the reasons I need Jesus, because there have been many times I've looked at people and thought, you fool. I wish you could have seen what happened in his eyes from being downcast, empty, to all of a sudden there was a spark inside of them. Because my friends, I had shared with him the reason for the hope that I had inside, and hope began to be ignited within him. And it wasn't much long after that that my friend entered into a relationship with Jesus Christ. This is one of the reasons we are told to always be ready to give the reason for the hope that you have inside. But to understand what we're talking about when we talk about a heart that hopes, an aspect of our heart that is so important when we're talking about investing in others, especially in discipleship, as well as in reaching out. It's important to understand that the biblical perspective of hope is very different from the world's perspective of hope. When the world talks about hope, it's referring to something. I wish. I desire. Oh, I sure hope it rains this week, or I hope it doesn't rain because we want to go kayaking. I hope that we're going to get to go on vacation this year to a really neat place. I hope that my husband's going to get me a cashmere sweater for Christmas. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just kind of that wishful thinking that's out there when the world talks about hope. But when the Bible talks about hope, it's not wishful thinking. It is actually referring to a confident assurance that actually in the Old Testament, are you ready for this? Trust and hope can be used for each other. That is how strong that hope is, that I am trusting, confidently assured that what God has said is true. But here's the thing. Satan loves to get us off track by helping us have a confident assurance. If I just open up, this is going to happen. Or a confident assurance that something God hasn't said is going to happen. Because what do we see in Proverbs 13:12? Hope deferred makes the heart sick. All right? And so Satan knows if he can get us to hope in the wrong thing, it can just pull the rug out from underneath us or underneath the believers that are around us. So it is so vitally important we realize we are not talking about, okay, it's important you have hope. It's what is your hope based in? So when we talk about a heart that disciples women, we are talking about a heart that hopes, confidently assured in Jesus, in the gospel, in what God has said that he will do. Because that, my friends, will not fail. But if we get off, like in our understanding of what God has said that he will do, that can turn sour really, really quick. So that's one of the reasons why when we are talking about the promises of God, it's so important that we take time with those that we're discipling to really unpack what does God say, what doesn't God say. And in the second module, we're going to be focusing in specifically on that. Because let's say John 16:24. Until now, you've not asked for anything in my name. Ask and you will receive, and your joy will be full. God said it, right? But what did God say? Did God say, until now you've not asked for anything in my name, ask and you will receive whatever you ask for? No. Ask and you will receive something, and your joy will be full. Do you see? God only gives good gifts. God is good. If we start believing, oh, well, I've asked for it, so then I'm going to get exactly what I asked for. Well, what if we ask for something that to us looks so good, but to God doesn't? And God knows it's not good. He only gives good gifts. And that's why God says, yes, wait, or I have something better for you. You never come away empty-handed. It may not be what you think you're going to get, but you will always receive something every single time you ask God. Do you realize if we have confidence, assurance that John 16:24 was true, how much more would we be asking? Because we'd be receiving, and experiencing God being faithful. And what would happen? Our joy would really be growing. So that's why when you sit there and you know, the more time we invest, what is my hope in? Is it just something I wish or I desire? Or is it rooted and grounded in what God has said? When it is rooted and grounded in what God has said, that brings a whole different foundation for our lives, because we are told in Hebrews 6:19 we have this hope. Not the I wish, not the I desire, but this confident assurance in the gospel in Jesus as an anchor for our souls. And what does an anchor do? In the middle of life's storms, it holds you firm. It holds you fast. It holds, and you may be like on the waves going back and forth, tossed, but you are held in place. And that's why this a heart that hopes is a heart, not just a heart that has hope, that could be over here, but it's a heart that really knows what its hope is in, and its hope is rooted and anchored in Jesus.